comes to the back of the plane or he comes along to shake your hand or to talk to us, you feel warmth. You actually feel warmth. It's quite interesting. It's not like there's this, wow, I'm enveloped by this spirit. There's a warmth to it. The man knows how to communicate to people, how to look at people without them feeling that he's anything other than what he is. Which leads me to something Father Figueroa was saying about the way he uses his power. He's got himself the biggest pulpit you can imagine, but he doesn't preach.
I think that what he has is credibility because he talks the talk and he walks the walk. In that interview we were talking about earlier with Father Spadaro, the first question is, who is Jorge Mario Bergoglio? And he says, I am a sinner.
I'm a sinner.
I'm a sinner. Coming right back to the weakness that is made strong through the grace of God that Monsignor was talking about. Then later in that same interview, he reveals that his favorite image of the church is as a field hospital after a battle, right? And if you put those two things together, what you see is a man who sees himself first and foremost as a patient in the field hospital, along with the rest of us, someone who needs the grace of God in order to be and to do in the world. That gives him an authenticity, a credibility that is unrivaled among public figures in the world today.
No
He's
question
the most
about
credible person on the planet. And credibility is the currency of politics. It's no wonder that he's able to affect change in the way that he has, that he was able to bring about the rapprochement between Cuba and the United States.
Alan, who's around him? You come from Rome and you know the crowd that surrounds him, the people he depends on, and the people who may shape him in terms of how he proceeds and what he believes.
That's an interesting question because I don't really know the answer to that. I know that the Secretary of State, Cardinal Parolin, is very close to him. He has several people, I think, that he relies on that we don't even know about. It's said that he even goes over and talks to Benedict from time to time. I think he's quite his own man. Someone I know who works in the Vatican said to me, one of the interesting things about Francis is that he will come up to you and ask you a question, but he already knows the answer. He wants to know what you think the answer is. And then he'll ask 2 or 3 other people the same question in a different way, and then he puts it all together. So I think he relies on people who think like him a bit. He certainly has a lot of Spanish speakers around him. I think he's comfortable with sort of his own kind, if you will, and maybe a little distrustful of the Italians, which is understandable given the way the Vatican works and the history of the Curia. But I think he gets smart people around him. He listens to him, and then he makes up his own mind. I don't think anybody pushes him in any one direction at all.
What does he say about what he wants to accomplish in this visit, Alan?
He hasn't been specific, but it's fairly obvious what his agenda is. This is a place you cannot ignore. There's 70 million Catholics, 3rd or 4th largest Catholic population in the world. The things that are on his agenda that matter to him, climate change, refugees, the savage capitalism, that sort of thing, this is the place. And he's willing to step into the belly of the beast. I think he's got a kindred spirit in President Obama in some ways, but it's interesting because if you look at the speech, for example, he talked about being an immigrant in the first instance, and then he moves, so he's got Democrats on his side maybe, moves into the next item, and it's kind of, you could say, a Republican thing. He goes right down the middle. He can talk about take any of the issues he cares about and not make them political. They're political issues, but he doesn't make them political. And I think his whole agenda here is to push the things that matter to him, push them to the forefront, and it's perfect timing. He's got, the visit was already planned to go to the World Family Day, so it coincides with a big meeting at the UN, so he's going to have all those heads of state, and he's looking at that. He can use that to say, the Paris Summit on climate, push